essence of awakened mind, there is no view to cultivate in meditation, no conduct to undertake, no fruition to achieve, no levels of realization or paths to traverse, no mandala to visualize, no recitation, repetition, or stage of completion, no empowerment to be bestowed, and no samaya to uphold. In the pure state that is the nature of phenomena, timelessly and spontaneously present, such adventitious factors of developmental effort and causality are transcended. The essence of these factors is awakened mind, unobscured by clouds or darkness. The sun shines in the sky by its very nature, not as something adventitious. Any teaching concerning the 10 attributes that involve effort and achievement is given in response to the confusion that occurs adventitiously due to the dynamic energy of awareness. It is a skillful means for engaging those whose acumen requires development through effort. It is not given to yogins who genuinely experience the ultimate meaning of the Vajra heart essence, Ati Yoga, so that individuals who exert themselves in order to progress developmentally may be led to primordial basic space, the true nature of phenomena. There are spiritual approaches of the Shravaka, the Pratyeka Buddha, and the Bodhisattva. These are the stages demonstrated on the 3 lesser levels. The 3 divisions of Kriya, Upa, and Yoga are, by their very nature, the three intermediate levels. Back to Longchen Rabjam, the basic space of phenomena, from the precious treasury of basic space of phenomena. Apologies again, I'm not able to control the elements of the universe, and sometimes they're going to impact the background levels, but I upped the noise gate a little bit and tried to take the high end down and see if I can clean it up a little bit for you, but some of it's really going to be unavoidable, and hey, we're going to, you know what, the show must go on because there's no biz like showbiz, and showbiz is like no biz. I know. Well, it is a show. It is the 12-Step Buddhist Podcast, episode 86, How to Take Refuge in Recovery, Refuge in the Sangha. Completed that round of a 14-day retreat and then 14 episodes in a row of the replay, along with daily practice and study on a very deep energy level, and it really took me to places in my meditation that I didn't know were possible. And, like I wrote about extensively in Compassionate Recovery, this whole thing of hooking the brain, using the brain, repurposing all phenomena, all experience. The more addicted you get, the more addicted you get. Therefore, this is all explained, but the more we meditate, the more compassion we practice, the more mindfulness we practice, the more we become compassionate and mindful. We learn to learn better. This also applies to what we've discussed as the law of inverse proportions. But I was working on getting up earlier. I was promised that I'm working on getting up earlier, 6:30 in the morning. I'm a night owl for my whole life, but I'm trying to be in a certain state of near the dream space to go into meditation and do my practice as close to the first thing I do as possible. However, I really want to do this before daylight. And I'm like, okay, one day I'm on and it's before daylight, and then I'm going to take an hour and a half to fix my coffee, and and then I was happy, but then the next day it was an hour later, it was already light. It was still way earlier than, I was the kind of kid that, as a drug addict, teenager, early 20s person, and then for many years in recovery, the first round of a decade sober. For sure it was really bad in that first 10 years. It never really got better. The inability to wake up on time, the inability to go to sleep on time. I could never get myself in a regular schedule. So there was a psychiatrist that told me this after a dozen years or so of psychotherapy with him, that I should be on a regular schedule. And, well, I never thought it was possible. However, I'm trying to do it, and that's part of my trying to balance my energy and work with the work with the natural flow and dynamic rhythms of, say, the diurnal cycle, time cycles, the energy of the rest of the world, the rest of the universe, instead of going against the grain, going more lining up and syncing my energy. I have more energy if I don't have to fight against the rest of the world. So I feel like getting up early really puts me in a great mind space, and with my practice so consistent and the mind space that I'm in, it's really part of the next level, and I'm really happy to be in there. And unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know, I get in the bipolar, not otherwise specified spectrum, in the bipolar dynamic, there's the push and pull, there's the ebb and flow. I was elated, and then I was paranoid, and then I was agitated, and then I was just unable to, stop. So I got working on this project. I thought, well, capitalize on this. And I really got jacked. I opened up my manuscript, the one from August, started a new fresh template, new outline, started cranking away at it. And then I get into this really triggered hypermanic state, rather, where I'm kind of unable to come down, and really 10 hours go by. When I start working like this, to me it's sort of like a life, like my life depends on it. Nothing else is interesting. Nothing else will satisfy. There's an itch I can't scratch. I can't be satisfied until it's printed in my hand. So, at any rate, I have a new outlining process, which is really excellent, and everything's going swimmingly, and I'm pretty happy about that. But the mania has its costs, because it's like a jagged edge of emotions. If you've ever read Touched by Fire, I could put that in the show notes. I read it many years ago, but my most recent therapist, who I was with for about 7 years, he had brought that book up many times, being on the bipolar spectrum, and it was a life-changing book. I read it when I was a teen, or early 20s, whatever it was, late 20s, whenever it came out. Alexa, when did Kay Jamison Touched by Fire come out?
From laphamsportally.org, Jamison published Touched by Fire, Manic Depressive Illness and a Creative Temperament, a work of nonfiction, in 1993, and a second memoir, Nothing Was the Same,
Okay.
in 2009.
1993. So, at any rate, y'all, that was before my first relapse, when I was sober from 84 to 94. So, Touched by Fire, I was aware of the bipolar. I don't want to get all off on this, but I'm just checking in with you. And the mania that comes with the creativity, which is better than the sullen, low energy, low affect depression. But you really have. I will sit and not know what in the hell I am feeling and why and where it's coming from, and I really, really, really have to practice deep meditation, deep energy work, really apply myself a lot to get myself into a better state. But really, the seriousness of my condition is such that, and this is part of what I'm writing about now. I've touched on the topic in a couple of books, in the 12-Step Buddhist 10-year anniversary edition, and then again in Compassionate Recovery, but I'm really focusing in more specific detail on my experience. And it really requires that for me to apply the meditation practice to full effect, I would have to apply myself as the kind of yogi that would be committed for. In a way, it's sort of impossible. It's not impossible, but I'd have to do 4 sessions per day of a couple of hours, at least 4 90-minute sessions. And that's not just an attitude of, okay, I did my session. Oh, I'll slog through it. As Igor said in a recent course that I took with him, you can see more about Igor Birkin at podcast.compassionaterecovery.us. You can go straight to his site, but I can't remember the exact link. It's on my site, so go there, take a look. But he was basically saying that don't just do a ritual try to have a quality to your practice, which, of course, if you've done any kind of yoga, which I've done many, many years of, and so on, you know you can't really fake it through there. You know you have to embody the practice to be in sync, unless you're on the beach doing your own thing, jang-a-lang. But you really do have to embody all aspects of presence. So 4 sessions per day of applied presence, and then not trying to like jump out of it and watch a bunch of WWE. I can watch SmackDown later, but that would be something else. I wouldn't be doing a lot of social media or internet. Be doing those 4 sessions a day, and for that to really work and keep the continuity, the intention of these practices. The retreat setting should be supported, so you should be in a place where people will bring you your food, and you take care of yourself, but you don't have to go hunt and gather out there in the world. There's someone helping you and protecting you in your meditation hut. Now we have to work with our circumstances. Here we are in this century, and at least I'm in the USA myself. Shout out to everybody out there, Latin America. Shout out to Mexico, the Netherlands, the UK, Germany, Australia. There's clearly some listeners in Russia. So for me to really advance in my practice and, get biz with the hurdles of my condition requires even more rigorous time and effort than I put in, and I'm sure I put in a lot more than most people because, this is what I have to do. So I'm working on that. I want to read you something before we talk about Buddhist refuge. I want to read you something. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. His trust shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall by thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For He shall give His angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. Because He hath set His love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him, and shew him in my salvation. We're concluding our series on refuge and recovery, how to take refuge and recovery. Next week we'll begin a little bit of how to construct a practice session. We'll include dedication in that. We'll open up with the components that we've been studying for some time, and I'll show you how to put together something that will work for you, that you can customize for yourself, and that will be super fluid for your own life and your own application. If you listen to Psalm 91 there's a lot that we can take metaphorically, energetically, and symbolically if we understand, if we can intuit teachings like this at that level. If we're a knucklehead and we say, oh no, the Lord's gonna keep me from the pestilence, I ain't taking no COVID vaccine. All right, you knucklehead, that's not what we're talking about. The pestilence that walketh in darkness, that's what's up in the subconscious. The arrow that flieth by day is, all those barbs and jabs we think and have in our heart towards other beings. You see, this is not so different from Dharma. So I just want to kind of toss that out there. I don't want to go super off into that topic. Just drop that with you. But the idea is that if we understand our condition, the Four Noble Truths, they're noble truths because we work. This is a transcendent. These are people who, these are beings who have done the practice and transcended on the path, achieved attainment, siddhis, become arhats, mahasiddhas, very advanced beings, much beyond people like us, but this is where we get a lot of our jam, as long as you get the real jam and not some fake ass motherfucking jam. So we follow the Four Noble Truths, so we understand that the Sangha is those who really devote themselves. If you're in a Tibetan culture, your Sangha is really referring to the monastics. You're kind of out and out. You're a lay person. You're not even really considered Sangha, but I'm sure in places like Refuge Recovery or Dharma Recovery, people are considered, Sangha in those types of group. I think the term Sangha has spilled over into yoga communities. I started a group called the 12-Step Sangha in 2008. That was before my editor kind of helped me dream up the title, the 12-Step Buddhist. But that term Sangha was pretty wacky back then. The AA police came over and sat in and monitored our meeting and then removed it from the AA guide, which I knew they would, but I wanted to get it in there long enough to get some buzz going. Hey, that meeting is still going, the Portland Alano Club. What is it, Tuesday nights at 7? Something like that. I can't remember if they kept that time. But just as refuge in the Buddha can be taken from the outer object to an inner subject, to a non-dual beyond subject-object, even where we expose that raw truth, who is that? Who's observing this non-dual? There's still presence observing. It's got to be unconditioned presence to observe and be, because there's no observer and observee, you see. And what do we do with this experience, this knowledge, this wisdom? That's working on refuge in the Buddha. You can go from the outer inner, secret, most secret, as we alluded to in the Psalm. Refuge in the Dharma can also be an object of study or an internal application to one's own inner passions, awareness of one's tendencies. Our meditation is really learning to be aware and train ourselves and be master of our own space and not being tossed about like a ship on a wild, crazy-ass ocean. And then we go into the refuge in the Dharma, into a knowledge beyond objects of study and application. Refuge also in the Sangha then can be on the level of a person in our community whom we value, we trust with our safety, but we can also take refuge innerly in our presence, and that's our ordinary presence, right? Take refuge in our inner presence. We can walk real slow, do mindful walking, this kind of thing, do some yoga, do some Tai Chi, and then we can develop an unconditioned presence, a global presence, a presence unmoved and unmoving, unwavering, but it's not the top of the deal there in Buddha presence, but it's the place where we could take refuge there and not hang out in refuge in our subject-object dualism. So we can take refuge outer inner. Let's say there's an outer inner secret and most secret refuge in the Buddha. There's an outer inner secret most secret refuge in the Dharma, and there's an outer inner secret most secret refuge in the Sangha. So who shall ascend to the hill of the Lord? He that dwells in the tabernacles of the Most High. In the sanctuary, the inner sanctuary. A house of worship big enough. A tabernacle is a house of worship big enough to house all the participants. And for us, referring to Internal Family Systems by Dr. Richard Schwartz, you can read his book, No Bad Parts. I can put that up on the show notes as well. We want to have a house big enough to offer a home, offer a table of self-compassion to all of our parts. A warm meal, everything that we would offer a guest, we humbly and graciously, without resistance to any aspects of ourselves, offer yourself as a gracious host, and draw those all in to the house of refuge, and say, hey, it's all right, we're working on it. There's suffering, the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. There's knowledge of emptiness. There's transcendence of samsara, awareness of impermanence. There's an equanimity. There are levels of knowledge or jhanas. There are teachings on refuge. There are teachings on refuge. There are teachings on bodhicitta. We've been talking about all these. There are systems and paths before us. Try to find a real, true, solid way for ourselves and not some chucklehead nonsense, some marketing hype. You got to find the real deal. Got to transcend samsara. I'm not looking for a band-aid. Myself personally, as I said, as I mentioned, I'm writing about my condition precludes any laziness, and it does get worse over time. If you look at adverse childhood experiences, the arc over the adult life cycle, all these things are exacerbated and progress towards higher probabilities of many different things like depression, heart disease, all kinds of problems. And these things get worse over time as our defenses start to lower. For me, there's no time like the present. If you think about it, there is no time in the present. There's no time like the present because there's no time in the present. Therefore, time, form, can't be in the present, formlessness, yet it is. Inside time we perceive, but who is it that perceives? Who is the meditator? Well, to find out about this and more, stay tuned to next week's show. Like I said, we're going to talk about how to do a practice session, lots of different ways to fill in the blanks. I do this in all of my books. I try to give you ways to put together a practice menu for yourself. I'm not selling some Kool-Aid. I would love it if you'd buy my books, though. Compassionate Recovery, The 12-Step Buddhist, especially those two, up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart. Ask for it at your local independent retailer. Tell them you'd like to get an order of a copy, and they'll get it for you. You can go to the Serenity Shop on my website. Take a look there. All kinds of resources on podcast.compassionaterecovery.us. I hope you'll stop by and check it out. You can hear all the episodes there, show notes, teachings, all kinds of stuff. It's been swell. I like to keep it real. Until next week, peace out and namaste.